Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the Insights and Innovation series for this day. We've got something special today. We're talking to the lovely Meredith Ansell, a legend of the industry, going to talking about the Experience Advocacy Taskforce, which many of you may have read about, but it's something really, really important for our industry and something quite fascinating that we're going to hear about. So without further ado, Meredith, over to you.
Great, thanks, Sam. And hello, everybody. So I can't see you, but I can see the names popping up and some names that I know. So it's lovely to see some people that I know, and obviously I'm very, very happy to meet new people as well to be able to talk about this particular issue that's really been uncovered over the last probably year by being spearheaded by Sparrow, or Greg Graham, as many of you might know him. If I said Greg, I think you'd all go, who are you talking about? So we are part of the Experience Advocacy Taskforce, which Sparrow founded last year after winning the MFA award for, being an industry legend of his time. But at that point, he spoke about one of the things that saddens him about the industry, which is that as you get older, and he was talking about over 50, it's really hard to find work and have people actually recognise the experience that you have. So he set up the Experience Advocacy Taskforce. I'm in one of the core groups. There's three other people within the core group as well, where we've written a business plan and we've put together really our vision for what we see the task force doing and how we see the industry of the future. So that's what we'd like to share with you today. So I might start by, just kicking off. One of the points that probably really struck us from one of the younger members in the task force, when she said she was talking to people, and she said, we really haven't been to any retirement parties in the media industry. So, just so, we can have a think about this. Has anyone been to more than maybe 2 or 3 retirement parties over the last maybe 2 or 3 years? No, I can't see any hands go up or any comments. Oh, Jackie Yally has. So she's one of the lucky ones out of this group of 32 people. But mostly it's not very common. You don't normally retire from this media industry. So we actually went, we do like to party, but we don't seem to have retirement parties. So this is what really we'd like to take you through is just to show you, why don't we have retirement business parties? So we've got a business plan for the task force that we'll take you through. We've built a framework for what we're calling change within our workforce profile. And then hopefully by the end of it, we've been able just to increase your awareness around this area and really to get you to start to consider about age diversity within your own workplace. What I'll take you through is where we are now. So I'll share some of the statistics, because we all love a good number, around what today's reality is with ageism in our industry. Then I'll take you through our business plan, so where we want to be, where we see our vision for tomorrow. How we get there, we've built a strategic framework, and it's a framework that we're happy for anybody to steal and use instead of having to rethink or re-brainstorm anything around this. The group has spent time, obviously, with a lot of research and understanding around this space already. So a framework that's very simple to use has been already developed. How we're going to get there, we've got to measure our success. We can talk about it. We can say we really want things to change, but we do need to start to put some measures in place so we can come back to you in a year's time too. And as a whole group, we can start to talk about how we're starting to see things progress within this space. And then, really importantly, what you can do. This is an issue within our industry, and it's not just a few people who are really at the moment advocating around experience within the workforce, but it's anyone who can see it happening within their workplace. So it's really easy for you to be able to pick up on what it is and maybe have a good think about what we can be doing, and you be a part of that as well. So where we are now, this currently is the MFA census. Some of you may have taken part in this as well. The green line is the industry population, and the purple line is the Australian workforce population. So you can see from this line that we're quite different. So we have a very different shape to the rest of the workforce. We have always been a younger industry. We're not saying this has just all happened overnight, but the shape has become quite extreme. So under 30s, we're 2.8 times higher than the population in the workforce. Starts to drop off when you get to 40. And then by the time you get to 50 within our workforce, we're 7.4 times lower than the Australian workforce. So it's quite concerning. And when we did even dig around that 50 number, which is just on 5%, a lot of those roles are administrative roles and finance roles within the industry too. So it is a low number, and it seems to be made up more of administration style people. So this chart, particularly for us, it is one that we are obviously going to continue to measure and keep an eye on. Some other facts around the way in which our population within our workforce is built too, is it can be quite extreme. So I've taken you just through the age scenarios, but our average age too is at 32 years, whereas the rest of the country is at 39. What we're finding at the moment, and this is obviously from the MFA as well, is that the new to industry people that are coming in are only lasting an average of 2.6 years. And then anyone with over 16 years of experience is quite low too, at 10%. So on both sides of that younger part of the chart and our older part, there seems to be a lot of leakage going on. So one of the reasons that obviously when we look at it from like an over 40 perspective is we feel one of the reasons is ageism. And that's just been our industry that has always, really celebrated youth and being young. And this is taken from the World Health Organization around how we think about ageism and discrimination as a whole. And I think this is a really important framework that we'll bring through further when we start to talk about the strategy that we want to use moving forward. So how the World Organization look at this is, the first thing is we have this think area. So it's really all the stereotypes that have been put into play just by the way people think older people would work in the industry. Then we've got the prejudice. So it's how we feel. And so it's that feeling of, that they've probably passed their use by date, that they're probably not tech savvy enough. And it doesn't make them feel included either, which is a really important part of all of this, is the inclusion factor. And then the discrimination is how we act, which is what we're starting to see around recruitment and retention within our industry of people over 40, is an area where we're seeing, a lot of people struggling to find work or being able to retain the work that they're in. So this is really important for us in terms of how we start to talk about ageism in our industry and start to look for solutions around it. There's a lot of examples, and if, obviously because I've been working on this task force with Sparrow now for the last 4 months, I start to obviously see a lot of stories that are coming up in LinkedIn. And this is just one example. This is even of a copywriter where they're really experienced, but they can't even get a job interview. Just recently, we've even seen Anthony Gregorio from Saatchi's actually say, look, he wants to go more upstream because he just doesn't believe that experience is valued as highly enough within the industry. So he's making choices around the fact he doesn't feel valued. Where else can he be going? And then this actually came up in my LinkedIn, and this was a story. Like LinkedIn sends you, nice information pieces to help you when they can see, what you're doing on their app. And this was a story that I was served around age discrimination, and not to actually have your resume exceed more than 10 years. And definitely just said, the recruiters won't look at you if it's past 10 years. So that's just black and white on LinkedIn at the moment. And for some people, not knowing what else you've done in those years before as well doesn't give you that whole of person scenario around, well, what is their experience? And then Linda, who works in the core group at the task force too, had a situation where she was talking to someone after work one day, and this young person had just said, oh, I don't hire anyone before the 80s. And when she probed around this a bit much, he just said, oh, well, because they want too much money. Now that's a bit of an assumption around what somebody over 40 may be looking for now in their life stage and what they're looking for out of this career. Who obviously, you know, when you make an assumption, this is lovely Linda's quote from the Hummingbirds, it makes an ass of you and me, because sometimes assumptions aren't always correct. And that seems to be one of the areas that plays out quite strongly when people are thinking about their hiring strategies. There's other assumptions as well that come into ageism, and we all know this. Everyone's probably sitting on this call going, clients aren't willing to pay for experience. We've talked about experience not being valued. There's this sense, you know, that older workers couldn't keep up with the digital age. We're seeing, you know, some people are saying, oh, well, you know, they're burnt out by the time they approach 40. Employers believe that if they don't move up, they should just leave. So we have sort of a bit of a linear view in how you progress within our industry. Employers also don't allow workers to move down. So for people who go, I don't want to run a whole department or a business, you know, but I really love, you know, doing strategy. Why can't I do that? Why can't I come back to be able to do that? And then the whole it's money thing. So there are a lot of assumptions at the moment that are coming into this conversation around ageism as well. The thing is that, you know, you can see, again, some of the stories that are coming through on this. Ageism is a real missed opportunity, because once you get to a certain point, you live through your life in all these different stages. And we talk about these life stages that we live through. And this is a great example of somebody who's over the age of 40. And, you know, he loves the career that he's in, but he doesn't want big titles. He doesn't need the big pay anymore. He's not, you know, not out to be the guy running the company. He just wants to find a great role where he can work with great people, you know, really do some great work and share his experience, and hopefully others can learn from that as well. So there's a bit of a missed opportunity around hiring someone who's this motivated to work with people and not really chasing the big dollars. Also, we know that I think a lot of people on this call probably follow Tom Goodwin as well. You know, we're not very creative as an industry when it comes to how we build our workforce and what our hiring policies are. We're a bit black and white around it. But, you know, he talks about too, like, you know, why don't you bring in someone who's got a lot of experience, and they could be brilliant for 2 days a week? Do they have to be there 5 days a week? You know, when you pick those best people, like, they don't always have to be there 24/7, and they could get through what you need to do in shorter periods of time. So it's another way of not, you know, working in this whole like 40-hour week scenario that we're looking at in terms of how we build that workforce too. So he's been provocating around this over the last few months too. And then there's this phrase that's coming into conversation when we've been talking to people as well. And it's like, what's your exit plan? So some of the guys, and this is coming from somebody who's 32 years old at the moment, and they're just saying that, you know, when they look up, they actually can't see anybody else who's a little bit older than them. You know, it feels a little bit like Netflix Black Mirror, like, where did these people go? So they don't really see a sense of what happens next in their careers. So they're sort of worried there's an expiry date. So they talk about the expiry date and the exit plan, which is really, you know, really sad. And I think a lot of us here on this call who've had, you know, great careers and great times within this industry, and being able to come through and have some amazing mentors as well. It just feels it's not right that this next generation seems to feel they need this exit. So the consequences of what we're seeing at the moment is we seem to be losing really valuable experienced talent from the industry post 40. So it seems to fall off a cliff. And then those who actually want to stay or even want to come back in, they're finding it harder and harder to get back into the industry. And then if you pair those points above to the fact that we're having real struggle around that retention area, around that younger workforce at the moment, it's really leaving a bit of imbalance around that knowledge sharing and future generation capability. And then you have the guys that are also stuck in the middle, and Deloitte talks about this middle group as well, and the middle managers, which is where they are the group that will bring in diversity and inclusion, but they do require more mentoring and support to do that. So, you know, where can they find that mentoring and that experience to be able to do that? So it sort of has a little bit of a ricochet effect across what's happening. And ultimately, there's so much research out there, and I'm not going to take you through everything, but productivity is better when you have a more diverse range of people within your workforce, and that also includes age. And that also brings in the fact that you can see more proactivity and ultimately more satisfaction within people's jobs and within what people are producing. So it definitely can have maths put against it as well, around what a more diverse group would look like within our industry too. So that's just a little bit of background around really what we're hearing at the moment. And really, you know, we're not a group of people that are here to say, oh, it's not great, is it? Like, this is pretty terrible. We're a group here and we call ourselves a task force instead of just a group, to be honest, is we want to change it. And we want to actually be able to do that in a constructive and positive way. So as I mentioned, you know, Sparrow / Greg Graham, he is the man that has set this up. And it's really important that, our actions speak louder than our words. So we are a task force that are making sure that we're going to be able to provide the industry with, for example, a framework, but also around some more research as well, and initiatives that can help. This currently is the task force we have in play. You will notice that Sam is part of this workforce, as well as Jackie, and then we also have Angela from Affinity. So the indies are represented within this group as well. So, and I think we've got Patty here too. We've got a lot of good indies and people who have worked in both forms of agencies too. So we can get a really good representation of people in there. What our role is essentially is we're all volunteers. We're doing this because we would like to be part of creating an industry and leaving an industry that's probably far more inclusive than what it is at the moment. What we're set up to do is to be able to help with a framework in terms of addressing ageism within the industry. And what we're looking for is to really foster collaboration and sharing. So it's not like an us versus them scenario. This is a human rights issue, a diversity issue within our industry too. So it's something that really, as a whole of industry, we should be looking at what impactful initiatives can make a difference overall. So what we're doing is, obviously we're meeting with yourselves. We've met with the IMAA board members as well to start to talk about what can we do together. We talk to the MFA, we're talking to the AANA. We're working with the bodies first to then be able to go, you know, this is where we're going, this is what we're doing, you know, how can we work together to make a difference? So, and we're going to start with media first because it's what we all know. So let's start with what we're good at. And we're going to work with agency land first from a media perspective, and then move ourselves out into media owners, because media owners really are a reflection of media agencies, which was an interesting insight we had around who agencies recruit is then reflected into media owners on how they recruit their sales teams as well. And then we start to go for the bigger portions around full service agencies, other types of agencies, and then the marketeers as well. So We've been active for 6 months now, and we're really working at this point in time now around building awareness with the media part of our industry. What we want to do is we want to make ageism a non-issue for the next generation. It's really important that we're able to give back, essentially back into the business, and look for ways in which, as a whole of industry, we have those initiatives that, you know, in the end, that next generation goes, why are we still talking about ageism? It's pretty big and hairy in terms of the goal that we have set ourselves, which is to dismantle the task force by 2030. Because this type of diversity issue, it's not going to sort itself overnight or in the next year. We have to be honest with ourselves. But by 2030, we would like to really not have the task force, because, you know, ageism, obviously, we're hoping becomes a non-issue, or one in which agencies are quite easily able to just self-regulate around. So how are we going to get there? So the first thing is as a task force group, these are the values that we decided to set ourselves, and the way in which we communicate and collaborate with our industry and agency partners. Because really the collaboration piece is really important, because it takes a whole of village to make a difference, as Hillary Clinton would say. So it's really important that we're actively participating within the industry around this issue. Obviously, we're here to be optimistic. We're not here to bemoan. What we want to do is be solution focused, address the issue, and then look for ways in which we can create interesting and optimistic solutions that are relevant to our industry. Positive is really important in terms of the words we use. So we don't really want to use lots of negative words around old and aged and past its use by date. Like, obviously at the beginning I was showing that's the wording and the assumptions that are happening at the moment around this space. But we'd like to start to, when we are talking about that over 40 area, we can replace them more with positive words like experience, wisdom, and knowledge. And then throughout all of this, we still need to be pragmatic. So it's really important that we look at this in a practical sense. As I said to you before, we're not going to be able to wipe this out completely, but we do have a plan in place that we're working with industry around, that step by step we can put some practical thoughts and understanding around what we can be doing in the business. Like everything, we've got a business plan. It's all on a page. So you can see that we are looking to partner with, obviously, the key industry bodies. We see our role around raising awareness of the issue. Also around educating around retention and recruitment initiatives is really important. And then for us, we really need to start to instate some formality around policy and measurement for ageism. We're looking, obviously, to build relationships also with industry leaders, DE&I teams, pitch consultants and recruiters, and understanding that, we've got key segments as well. And as we've shown you in our map earlier as well, around making sure that we can talk to clients, talk and understand what's happening with concerned workers and experienced job seekers as well. So we have set ourselves a big task on a page. And we have really taken on board how do we step ourselves through the next few years to get ourselves to 2013, because, we are losing talent and we do seem to have a shortage of talent. So there's got to be a solution that we're starting to construct here together. This is our roadmap. So as I mentioned before, this is our first year. We really are pushing around, focus around, well, who are we? You would have seen us in the press lately. We are speaking at events now, and we actually have another big support announcement at the Power 50 lunch as well. So this is us and this is what we're doing. So everyone is really clear around the Experience Advocacy Task Force. And sometimes it's called EAT because Sparrow likes to eat as well. So we found an acronym that suits him as well. Next year, what we're doing is we're going into survey mode early in the year, and that's where we need to discover the really big whys, and I'll show you that in a minute. And then we'll develop some campaign and some big launches around that information that we find through our surveying. Then in 2025, we're looking to be able to put some big initiatives into play, and that's been working then with our partners around that. And then taking the next few years around, consolidating what we learn, being able to course correct and hopefully being able to build some case studies or use cases around how this can work really successfully within our industry. And then, hopefully by 2028, we're really starting to hand over what we've been doing to just our key partners to self-manage, as I mentioned before, and ultimately dismantle this group. So we've built 2 work streams. One's around awareness, where we will share insights, share our stories, any research that we've conducted, all that we find. We really want to be able to highlight the value of experience, wisdom, and knowledge. And then the second group is around employment and retention. So that really is deep collaboration with industry leaders and bodies to actually create some meaningful initiatives around employment. So ultimately what we're doing is we're starting to reframe what ageism means in our industry, and we continue to reinforce that over time so that we can redress this issue within our industry. This is the framework. It's really simple. We're not here to overcomplicate what we're doing, but as I mentioned to you before, this is the discrimination description that the World Health Organization uses around this. And so what we've looked at is going, okay, well, what can we do around stereotyping? There is really high unconscious bias around this particular diversity issue as well. So how are we able to reduce that? And also the assumptions. So what we'll be looking at is increasing awareness, and you'll see that, as I mentioned earlier, with all of the PR and events that we're doing. Also, SBS has a diversity module on ageism, which is really interesting in terms of educating yourself around that, and then through the campaigns that we'll be doing. Around the prejudice, there is that lower recruitment and retention at the moment. And what we want to look at is, we've got to increase the feeling of inclusion by more experienced workers in the workplace. This will be a big education pillar that we'll be working on. We're currently in talks around a training hub that has so much training to offer. We've got a lot of online training that we do in pockets across the industry, but where's there one place that you can come to that you can go back in and go, maybe I need to be refreshed or I want to be updated. We're looking obviously around recruitment training into agencies. We're working through a use case around looking at the actual dollar value of experience, because that's really what the guys running the agency want to know. And we're working with recruiters. We're having really good conversations with recruiters at the moment. They seem very passionate about this topic too, around initiatives we can be working with them with as well. So from the discrimination piece, we're looking at a lower workforce participation rate. So we want to be able to increase the age profile. If we look at that chart again, like how can we start to move that shape around a little bit more? And that's around, that instating that formality. So looking for agencies to have action plans. One particular agency group at the moment has already started to write their action plans for ageism, and we'll be presenting them to their agency leadership teams around this already. Looking at the measurement plan that we agree on as an industry, and that's why we've been talking to Jackie and Sam around what we're looking at doing, and also other industry bodies around just agreeing on a framework on how we measure. So we're not all off doing different types of measurements. It's really, is there one that we can be holding up and going, actually, this is the one that we can actually measure progress against. And then ultimately it's having inclusion into client RFPs as well. So it becomes something that they realise is just one of those diversity areas too that does need to be accommodated when they're looking at agencies. So at the moment, as I mentioned, we're going out to discover the whys, and we've got to match those with the opportunity that we can see in our industry. So we're not highfalutin here. We do know that we need to be able to understand what is the big areas around why we're seeing this drop off, what's happening here, but then also when we do build out initiatives, they're going to have to work with the industry and find the opportunities that are going to work for all of us. So it's got to be a win-win situation overall. So this is at the moment the design framework that we're working in to make sure that we are actually putting together initiatives that make sense. This is the research that we're doing at the moment. We're working through existing data that's available, and so we can have a look at it, obviously, understanding then how we're looking at as a diverse industry. And then we actually have a 12-question draft at the moment that's being reviewed by researchers around finding that why. We then will also be conducting some qual research as well. We will be interviewing people who've left the industry to get their point of view around why they left and what the challenges were for them. And that will be happening probably around about March next year. So how do we know we've got there? As we mentioned, here's the chart. The shape is obviously, it's quite extreme. We're not saying we want to be able to move it right up in line with the workforce, but to get closer to the workforce profile of Australia. The other interesting point is that, this is a global issue. It's an issue that's facing Australia at the moment around an ageing population. And our population is aging, but they're capable and healthy as well. So it's not like the traditional, you retired at 55 or even retired at 60. There's nothing wrong with you. We're very lucky to now have a life expectancy rate sitting around 83 years. So, you get to 40, you're only halfway through your life. There's still a lot to do, a lot to live, and a lot to give. So, it is an interesting issue that everybody's looking at the moment. The Australian government's circling around this at the moment too, around how workforces can be able to retain older people within their profile too. So I would say the Australian government too would be looking to be moving their purple line up a lot higher as well. And I think we're starting to see some good examples coming through of workplace employers being able to think about that transition of an older age group within their workforce. In terms of measurements, there's a few ways we're measuring success at the moment. We're looking at how people are using the SBS ageism module. We also have a Change.org petition that just really indicates people's desire for this particular area of diversity to be recognised. And I'll show you a link to that. And then you can see all of the PR work we're doing at the moment. In terms of the education piece, it's looking at the participation rates. We start to get into the training programs that we'll be working with industry around. And then also we're also considering there's a global inclusion index that Kantar does for all industries. The Ad Council has just done it for their agencies that they represent, and it is pretty well much just the global best case around being able to measure this. And then in terms of, being able to instate action plans will be really important. And we're having some really good conversations with people already. So we already know people who are putting these plans into place, and then talking about with other D&I teams what they're going to be doing in this space too. So we can start to see how many action plans we see this included into. We start to see our census charts start to move. And then obviously we'd love to see then more RFPs starting to include age, diversity and experience within their RFPs. So what can we do around this at the moment? If you haven't already joined our LinkedIn page, we have a page where we're constantly putting up what we've seeing through research, any events that we've been at lately, so you can keep an eye on what we're up to. You can do the same if you like Instagram as well. We have an Instagram page too that you can easily jump on and have a look and see what we're up to. In terms of the area, sorry, that's my dog, in which you can participate in straight away, please jump onto the SBS diversity module around ageism. That's one way in which you can start to understand a lot more around this space. Take our Change.org petition, sign that. That would be great. There's also a quiz. It's called the Every Age Counts Quiz, because who doesn't love a quiz? Where you can be tested out on what you know and how you're acting around this space. And then, look, the most important thing for us from today's call and being able to share this with you is, discuss some recruitment options when you get back to the office. Start to have conversations around adding these into this topic into action plans and conversation as well. And that is a really great start for starting to make this issue one that is spoken about, and one that we can all address as a group that will benefit us greatly as an industry. And that is the Experience Advocacy Taskforce and what we're up to at the moment and what we're intending to do in the future. Is there anyone with any questions? No?
Normally it's a little bit quiet, Meredith, but thank you so much for that. That was so insightful, something that I'm certainly keen to learn more about as well. We will share, this will be recorded and placed onto our YouTube channel. So if anyone needs us to share the PDF version, just contact us and we will share it with you. And thank you so much and have a great rest of your week.
Thank you, everyone, for joining the call, and take anything you want from this presentation. We would love you to steal anything.
Thanks, Meredith.
Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone. See you.
Thank you. Bye.